Hey everyone, welcome to this week's edition of Title Scoop. So this week we're starting a new series. It's not going to be as long as the last one, but it's one that I've had a lot of requests for. So we're going to talk about the homeowner's policy. And this is one, again, like I said, a lot of people have been reaching out, inquiring a little bit like, what is it? How is it different than a standard owner's policy? What should I know? So I thought a couple of videos might be helpful just to help you understand what it is and when you can issue it. So first I'll give the caveat. If you're getting asked about this, one, find out if it's available in your state. So talk to your underwriter if you don't know. Also, make sure you have the proper form because it is a different form that you're going to be using. And then third, know what you're supposed to charge because in a lot of states, there's going to be an increased premium on these or a surcharge just because there is additional risk that we're taking on. So a lot of times it's justified to add an additional fee, but those will be in your filed rates or whatever your rate filing is in your state. Now, what is the homeowner's policy? It's essentially an enhanced policy for the owner. So we have the owner's title policy, right? An owner's policy that we give, and this is providing additional coverage. So the owner's policy, the standard owner's policy, has 10 covered risks. This one has 33, so pretty significant difference as far as what we're actually covering. The other thing that's interesting about this one is that normally we have these covered risks and they're existing, right? They go backward. This one has those existing risks. So we have the 10, but then the additional 23, some of those actually will cover certain specified future risks. So that's a little bit different, right? Title insurance, usually we think of as going backward. We have our effective date, our policy date, and we cover things backward before that. But this one has some coverages for future risks. So again, just a little bit of a difference. So some of the basic coverages that you'll hear on the homeowner's policy, you're going to hear that it covers claims of title due to fraud, duress, incompetency, incapacity. Maybe you had an invalid or an expired power of attorney that was used. That will be covered. Missing signatures on a deed or maybe recorded docs had some issues. That could also be covered. False impersonation, so say that we have a deed and the true owner was falsely impersonated and sold the property, that could be covered. Unreleased liens. And then the three that I think are sort of interesting because we just talked about endorsements are we actually cover vehicular and pedestrian access. So as you guys know, normally we're covering legal access, right? And you have to do the access endorsement in order to get vehicular or pedestrian access. So that's one that I say is kind of interesting because we're giving additional access coverage. Forced removal of existing structures. Again, normally you're going to ask for a comp endorsement to get that coverage, but this one's covered. And then this one is one that's one of the future encroachments by neighboring improvements even after the date of policy. So again, that's a future risk that could be covered. So who can get this? So this is a little bit more limited. Not everyone is available to get this. It's got to be a natural person or it's got to be an estate planning entity. And it actually defines this. I would encourage you to read through it just so that you see the definitions and the covered risks. And again, we're going to talk about it over the next couple weeks. But a natural person is easy enough, right? We know what a natural person is. But an estate planning entity is either it's a legal entity and that could be a trust or a trustee, right? Something that was created on behalf of the natural person for the purpose of their estate planning, right? Their disposition of their estate after death. So, like I said, trusts are going to be covered. If it was for estate planning, I should say that because a land trust is potentially not covered. So if you have a land trust, call your underwriter to see if you can actually use it because it depends on how it was created. The land also has to be specific. It has to be improved. It needs to either be a single family residence, 1 to 4 single family residence, or a condo. So you've got vacant land, you've got commercial property. Those are not going to be covered. You can't issue this policy, okay? If you have anything where you're like, I'm not quite sure, like maybe it's covered, maybe it's not, maybe it's a manufactured home. Call to find out because you may be able to issue it. You just got to talk to your underwriter to see whether or not it will be covered. Same with non-owner occupied. Maybe it's maybe it's a vacation home. That might be covered. But if you think about an investment property where they're not going to live, maybe it's not going to be covered. All right. So we've got to really know what the property is and whether it can be covered in this because it's got to, again, fall into the criteria of the owner's policy. So I know that's not a lot of information, but I just want to kind of give a quick overview. Next week, we will go into the covered risks, the difference between the owner's policy and the homeowner's. And if we have time, we'll go into guidelines for issuance. If not, we'll cover that the following week. So with that, we'll call it a week and we'll see you all next week.